Oh, thank you again for joining me for another one of these CiC monthly webinars. This is our March 2022 webinar with the topic is sleep and finding balance. I've put together some slides for us to discuss what the importance of sleep is, why it is that might be what it is that might be disrupting our sleep at the moment. You know, we're living through really difficult times, and also some ways that we can look at sleep in a slightly different way, because instead of seeing it as just a kind of natural need for us, sometimes it's also good to think about sleep as our balance, as part of our balanced day in this world. So my name is Harry Key. I'm the head of global specialist services for CiC. As you can see, I also sit on the board of the EAEF and EPA UK. So perhaps if there's questions as well about what EAP organizations can do to assist with this kind of thing, please do let me know in the chat. I've already had a private message from someone here saying the thing that's keeping them up at night is anxiety with the war in Ukraine. I think it would be strange for us to be here talking about sleep and trying to relax without noting the fact that we have a war going on at the moment. And that can be really, really difficult for us. There's so many difficult emotions going on around that, and those can really come in around bedtime when we're trying to relax and shut off our brain. Had lots of sessions over the last 2 weeks with organizations all across the globe really struggling with that, particularly struggling around staying up to date with the news, but also not impacting our time for rest and sleep as well. M. Noon says in the chat, I know I benefit from more sleep, but never feel like going to bed early, so rarely more than 6 to 7 hours. Any tips? Yeah, we're going to get some of those as we go through this. So please give me your comments, ask me your questions as we go through, and yeah, I'm sure we'll have a useful discussion around this, because sleep is a really important topic. I stole this quote from Russell Clayton at Psychology Today. There was a few things in here that really stood out to me, because lack of sleep, as we know, is associated with increased stress levels, but also this decreased decision-making ability. It gives us less kind of power or energy in our mind to make these decisions. But the last bit is the most important one, I think, for me anyway. Let me know in the chat if you agree or disagree. When I've had a bad night's sleep, when I'm not getting the rest I need, it's the negative attitude at work and home. And we often think of a negative attitude in affecting other people, but don't forget about how a negative attitude affects yourself as well. When we're feeling negative, we're involved in that. If we're feeling negative about the world, we're in the world. And turning that focus on ourselves can really start to chip away at our self-esteem, our self-image, and our confidence in ourselves as well. And he goes on to say there's a loud voice out there still telling us that working hard and foregoing sleep is the key to success. Pushing yourself to have extra hours in the day of work is the only way to get through. It's a very old-fashioned culture, but it still sticks around. Thankfully, the voices, hopefully mine's included in that are trying to shout out there and say, no, if you can actually put good boundaries around your work time and get really good sleep, we can be more productive with limited time than if we just stretch our working day. I know so many of us have done that since the start of the pandemic with working remotely and all the change and uncertainty that's going on. We kind of go into crisis mode a little bit. We stop thinking about our needs and meeting them and just think about getting through each day at a time. And that kind of day-to-day living can be really difficult for our sleep. So there are risks of not getting enough sleep. Clumsiness and accidents. There's a beautiful picture there of a real terrible disaster. But yeah, 3 Mile Island, the Exxon Valdez spill, and Chernobyl meltdown have all been linked to people doing critical jobs on a lack of sleep. But it also just changes our concentration. It changes our libido. It can bring on depression, can change our skin and bring us wrinkles. It can also bring forgetfulness. If you've been to my sessions in the past, you know I talk a lot about the animal brain and how our hippocampus, that area of our brain responsible for short-term memory, gets affected by stress. And the less we're sleeping, the more stressed we are, so the more forgetful we are. It also changes our weight as well. A lot of the good things that our body does happens when we're asleep or resting. If you think about it this way, if I went out for a run today to exercise and I twisted my ankle, I would need to give that ankle a day off the next day. I'd need to give it some rest, some natural time to repair and replenish. I wouldn't go running on that twisted ankle the next day. I'm only going to make that injury worse. Well, the same goes with stress in our mind and sleep. We need sleep and relaxation to recover from the effects of stress. If we're not getting that, all we're doing is putting ourselves in a decreasing situation where things are just going to get more and more difficult over time. So I wanted to hear from you about the different sleep problems that we have going on in the room today. Like I said, you can send those to me in the chat publicly, or you can send it to me as a private message if you prefer. I put a few examples on the screen here, but you might be experiencing some of these or some other ones. So we talk about waking up in the middle of the night and then being unable to return to sleep. That's what we call insomnia in a lot of cases. You've probably heard that phrase. Some of us, however, might be having difficulty winding down and falling asleep in the first place, maybe waking and not feeling rested. And we touched on this at the beginning of the session. There's some really difficult things going on in the world at the moment, the war in Ukraine included, and that can bring really difficult thoughts at nighttime, and fear and anxiety plays out in our dreams and becomes like nightmares. Um, so we've got Erica saying in chat, sleeping 8 hours and still waking up tired. So that's a really good sign that we're getting sleep because our body's tired, but we're not getting good, deep, restful sleep. And a lot of the tips that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, we'll be talking about how to get that deep, restful sleep. Someone else saying here privately, waking early before my alarm. Yeah, that can be a real pain because not only are we not getting the sleep we wanted, but also it can feel a bit like a failure. And sometimes when human beings feel like we've failed, we start blaming ourselves and feeling guilty and piling on top of that negativity. Evelyn saying here in chat, my brain keeps thinking and can't relax or switch off. Yeah, so I'm going to talk about kind of good routines around sleep to help us switch our brain off. Someone else saying privately, I've had an issue for a number of years where I wake up tired and bodily fatigued every day, no matter how many hours of sleep I get beforehand. I actually had that this morning to that person who said that. Found it really difficult to get started this morning. And often, if I'm feeling like that, and my first reaction is, well, I've got to get to work, so I've just got to get going, I'm forgetting about myself. My body, if I'm waking up and my body's still fatigued, it's telling me something. In fact, it's screaming at me. It's trying to get me to do something different. Yet sometimes all I do is the same thing, get in the car or get on the bus or get on the tube and go to work. Can we sometimes, when we're not feeling that rest in the morning, take 15 or 20 minutes just to tend to yourself, just to check in with your needs and make sure you're getting all that you need? Yeah. Someone else says here, alarm and not able to get back to sleep. Yeah. Debbie saying, I sometimes get very tired and sleepy watching TV and miss some of the program. Then when I try to go to bed, I can't get to sleep. Yeah. So often that's when we've got particular anxiety about the need for sleep as well. When sleep becomes stressful, we'll end up kind of falling asleep elsewhere. Nigel said waking during the night, 3 a.m. is the longest hour. Yeah, I've got some really specific tips for that waking in the night, Nigel, because it's a really common one. But also, the very fact that you say 3 a.m. is the longest hour is a good sign to me that sometimes when we wake up in the middle of the night, the only thing that we can do is watch the clock, and that becomes a real stress and a real pain, and actually keeps us awake. Gemma says here, interrupted sleep, waking up multiple times. Yeah, Tamsin says, putting off going to sleep is sometimes an issue. Yeah, Nicola agrees, can't quite switch off. Someone else saying here privately, I have problems with racing thoughts, not even worry-based necessarily, but just mundane thinking. I really need to tire myself out to be able to sleep. I'm waiting for assessment for ADHD, and this is really common and unfortunate problem with people with the condition. I also feel like I'm driven by a motor and want to do things in the evening, but don't know when to stop. My brain just doesn't tire easily. So sometimes if our brain's not getting tired, it's a good sign that we're not doing enough with our body during the day as well. Both things have to be quite tired at the same time for us to fall asleep properly. So making sure that we're getting enough physical movement during the day can really help. Even just 5 minutes more than you normally are getting at the moment can help with that kind of thing. I'll talk about that in more detail a bit later. Marjorie said, insomnia, no matter how much I try and relax before sleeping, I even use ASMR, but still fail. Again, let's check out that critical language. Be kind to yourself. You're not failing. Something's just not right. Something's up in your life. Something's going on that's stopping us from getting to sleep. It's not a failure. It's a problem that we're going to try and solve. But yeah, thank you for sharing that. Anna Martin said, I have a difficult time sleeping because I live in Panama, but I work virtually in the UK and Africa in other time zones. I've got some tips for that as well. Thank you. Someone else saying privately, how I can calm an overactive brain to switch off and trying not to look at technology. Yeah, I've had plenty of conversations over the past couple of weeks about people kind of switching off from technology, that kind of doom scrolling, as they call it. What we call it in the world of psychology is hypervigilance. The world is scary right now. It's terrifying for people and it brings on that anxiety. What that anxiety can sometimes do is make us feel like we have to be always on. If you think about it, if there's danger going on, I want to know everything about this danger so that I can try and stay safe. It's a very animal reaction. But yeah, we need to try and curb that a little bit. Um, Michael says waking to go to the toilet. Yeah, another really common one. The good things that we can do around sleep with our body in a routine can help with that, and I'll share that in a bit. Alison says vivid dreams, nightmares about family and work. So sometimes when we're having those nightmares, it's a good sign that there's a story going on in our head that isn't quite finished. It's not quite processed. So I really recommend when we're having those nightmares, when we get up the next day, is kind of sharing them to ourselves out loud or sharing them with a family member or a friend, getting them out of here. Human beings have this incredible knack for trying to keep all our problems up here and solve them instead of speaking them out loud and trying to share them with other people. Ross says, my body's exhausted, my brain's still rushing. So sometimes, at the moment in particular, our body can be exhausted even though we haven't done active things. And that's often because we're suffering from quite a lot of stress and anxiety. Not surprising in the world we live in at the moment, but that stress and anxiety tires our body out without it actually having to use the energy that we've stored for exercise and things like that. So making sure that we get enough movement during the day again is really important for that kind of bodily exhaustion, but also trying to identify what the stresses in our life are, what's causing this. Instead of just trying to treat the symptom of sleeplessness, what's causing the stress in my life? Someone else saying here privately, waking even though I've had sufficient hours, but my body's still physically shaky at times is a common problem. Yeah, we'll talk about that one in a bit. Someone else saying privately, how to deal with not being able to switch off and dealing with a snoring partner. I don't have any tips for snoring partners other than, reminding them that it's their issue. It's causing us a problem, but the snoring is their issue, and asking them to take responsibility for it is really important. And evidence is worried about oversleeping if unable to sleep until the early hours of the morning. And then someone else saying privately, a really important one, childhood trauma. There can be things that we can't control on a daily basis that are bothering our mind or keeping us awake. Thank you all so much for sharing those. It's really important. I could never have brought enough slides to put all of that experience together. This is why it's so vital that all of you here take part, and I really appreciate it. For those of you that are just listening and don't want to take part, you're absolutely welcome to be here too. The more of us that are here to listen is more important too. So I wanted to start us off with some kind of tips. Oh yes, Flandina, one of my colleagues is saying in the chat, you can get an operation to correct snoring. Absolutely. It's a really simple solution sometimes. Yeah. So I wanted to talk about how we generate good sleep by finding balance throughout the day. Because actually most of us only start thinking about sleep around bedtime, but there's a lot of stuff that we do during the day that can generate a positive relationship with sleep and a positive environment for sleep. First of all, and let me know in the chat, are you someone that has breakfast every day? Or let me know if you're one of those breakfast skippers. Because breakfast, as we've all been told since we were 3 or 4 years old, is the most important meal of the day. That's not a joke. It's not an old wives' tale. It's not just a cliche. It's true. There's really good reasons why when we get up in the morning, we should eat something. So first and foremost, and this may seem really weird, but it sends a message to my brain that I'm in a well-fed environment. Just one dumb animal thing that my brain does. If I don't eat within 30 or 45 minutes of getting up in the morning, my brain starts to panic that I'm not in a well-fed environment. So it starts to produce our good old friends adrenaline and cortisol to get me ready to hunt and gather food. I don't need that. I live in a modern world. I've got a fridge next door. Someone in an electric van comes once every 2 weeks and refills my fridge for me. They deliver the food right to the door. I know that in my modern world, but my old animal brain doesn't. So it needs that reminder. And it's really important as well for how we'll sleep at the end of the day, because it starts our digestive system, it starts lots of our hormonal systems going as well. And look, it doesn't have to be a full meal. Just something small and nutritious is perfect. I've got a picture of an apple there for a really good reason, a piece of fruit, handful of nuts or something. Flandina eats breakfast every day. Good to hear. Gemma says no to breakfast. Okay. So is it no to breakfast because we've got no time or because it doesn't feel great? A couple of people saying skipping breakfast, more saying every day. Breakfast skip are just coffee, says Nigel. We're going to talk about stimulants in a little bit. But again, really important. If I'm putting a diuretic into my system first thing in the morning, it's going to make me go to the bathroom and lose more water, lose more energy. So breakfast becomes even more important if you're drinking coffee. Kate says, I eat mid-morning, is never hungry when I wake up. Yeah, and hunger can be a difficult kind of relationship for human beings. We can have some difficult feelings around hunger. It's okay to eat when you don't feel hungry, even if it's just something small, if it's especially about this message to the brain. Even just I don't know, I've got an old stale box of granola. If I'm in a real rush, I'll just grab a handful of that first thing in the morning, at least give me something. Linda says, skip most days. Justin, yes to smoked kippers. Brilliant. Nicola, love breakfast, but may eat too much sometimes. Well, that's a really good point as well. Yeah, we can overload ourselves with a heavy breakfast too. As with anything in life, and the title of this session is about finding that right balance. AM says, I could never skip breakfast. Food is the highlight of my day. The times I do skip accidentally, the day is a write-off. Michael says, whoops, 2 cups of tea. Someone says here, on the other hand, hypervigilance in some lines of work is a good thing if framed as good situational awareness. Yes. So that's back to that comment I made about people being hypervigilant and staying online and staying awake all the time. Yes. But situational awareness is just that. It should be situational. The problem with hypervigilance is it affects me in all situations. I could be going to the toilet and I'm paying too much attention. That hypervigilance, yeah, there's too much going on. Gemma says, if I'm just never hungry early in the morning. It's okay. It's okay not to be hungry. Sam, someone else saying here, saying porridge. Andy says, has everyone lost Harry? Can I have a thumbs up from those of you to see if you can still hear me? Nice, good. So yes, sometimes people have, oh, he's back, good. Alison says, breakfast, thank you for the thumbs up, everyone, appreciate it. Breakfast is early before work to get daughter ready, and lunchtime is unpredictable at work as to what time it is. So I sometimes overindulge, which messes up my eating pattern. Yeah, meals are not one of those kind of things we can preload. We're not like camels. We can't just have a big meal and it's going to see us through the day. We need to eat kind of little and often, not just for good nutrition, but also for those regular messages to our brain that we're okay. So this is the first thing that we can do. To those of you that are missing this, try and find a fruit, or like I say, a handful of nuts, something that you can start your day with, even when you're in a rush, even when you're not hungry, something to just quiet that animal brain. And the next is food's best friend, water. I drink a lot of squash because I'm apparently still a teenager, even though I'm a grown man. Water just gets on my nerves sometimes. But even so, hydration helps flush our systems of waste products and toxins. We have been generating waste products and toxins all the way through our sleep. We've been dehydrating because we haven't been taking on water. And as I said, sometimes we get up in the morning and the first thing that we do is have a coffee, a tea, or a diuretic that makes us go to the bathroom and lose more water. Rabia says H2O is more important than food at times. I agree. You can survive 3 weeks without food. You can only survive 3 days without water. So definitely it's more important. Let me know in the chat, what is the first time today? What time of day did you have your first glass of water? If you can remember back that far. It's a really important question because the more water we drink through the day, the more refreshing our sleep becomes. So Michael has not had a glass of water yet. Michael, if you're in the UK at 4:20, that's pretty late. We've got a few 10 a.m., 7:30 a.m., first thing in the morning, 8 a.m., haven't had any again, first thing, lunchtime, morning with my supplements, yeah, really good. If you've got that as part of a routine, it's really good. At 8 a.m., mid-morning, none, just coffee, water at my desk, mid-morning, great. So just shift that. For those of you that are having it mid-morning or lunchtime or not at all, bring that first glass of water right next to your cup of coffee. There's nothing that says you can't have a cup of coffee and a glass of water at the same time. In fact, it works perfectly. And yeah, as I say, the more of that water we take in through the day, so those of you that are finding it really hard to get to sleep, or when you do get to sleep, you're not feeling rested in the morning, more hydration can really help with that. And you're going to wake up more alert, more energetic, and you're less likely to snooze in the morning. Try and start, Ariana Martin, not yet, 11:23 local. Right, we'll go and grab one after this, or even during it, I don't mind. Start with 1 litre a day for 21 days and see if you can increase to 2 or 3 litres. Take it slow, don't punish yourself. The biggest problem with these changes, I find, is we try and make them at like New Year's resolutions or Lent or something like that. We put so much pressure on ourselves to do it perfectly. I talk about this every day. I start every day with a glass of water. Doesn't mean I always remember to drink it all through the day. Doesn't mean I always get it right. It's important to let ourselves off when we slip on these things as well. Because again, that negative attitude can make it even harder to sleep. The next one I'm going to talk about is our devices, our beautiful, wonderful devices, switching off technology an hour before bed, no screens around bed. All of the blue light that we get prevents melatonin levels from rising because our dumb animal brain sees the blue light and it thinks it's the sun. And when the sun's up, we don't produce melatonin, so we don't fall asleep. So yeah, letting that melatonin rise naturally by taking time away from screens is really good and helps us get that better, deep, restorative sleep. So again, if you're someone that's waking up feeling unrested, it could be that you're spending too much time on your screens before bedtime, and that's not letting us get that deep, restful sleep. So you might be completely knackered in your body, so you lay down and you fall asleep, but you don't go into deep, restful sleep. Rabia says, I use blue light deflector glasses like Ugly Betty. I haven't heard of those. Sounds good though, yeah. Michael says, does this include TV? Yes. Lauren, does that include the telly too? Yes. All screens like that give out blue light, absolutely. And again, also think about the information you're taking in on those screens. You know, if you're watching the news late at night, you're taking in at the moment the sights and sounds of war just before bedtime. That's really difficult. Flandini says you can use sepia sleep filters if you cannot let go of your device an hour before bed. Yeah, and they're good. They get rid of a lot of the blue light, but they don't get rid of all of it, and they don't get rid of all of that kind of attention that we're spending. If I'm on here, if I'm playing on my phone around bedtime, I'm usually more interested in other people. I'm looking at media or social media or other people's thoughts and feelings. What about me? What about my thoughts and feelings? They're the most important things to me around bedtime, I think. Nigel says, just use phone with earphones in bed for music. Yeah, good. Nicholas says, what about reading in bed? Is it good for you? Yeah, it can be. Try it out. If you're someone that likes reading in bed and it helps you get to sleep, great. If it doesn't work for you and it keeps you more awake, throw it away. Ian says, I keep my blue light filter on my phone and other devices all day because I prefer the warmer tint. Yeah, it can be more gentle on the eyes. Yeah. And Michael says, I'll start with water, then progress to no TV. You've got the right idea, though. Absolutely. Don't rip your whole life up and try all of these at once. Just try one or two of them at a time. This is for those of you that wake up in the middle of the night, and the title is This is a Tough One for a reason, because it's really, really hard. But if we can manage to do this, it's really useful. So the science goes that if you wake in the night, checking the time is really disruptive. Because when you check the time, your brain begins to calculate and assess, and it starts getting those emotions involved. A couple of you said this earlier, watching the clock at 3 a.m., that slowest hour, waking up before our alarm, then feeling scared that we're not gonna be able to wake up when it goes off, things like that. So if you wake in the night, try and stay away from clocks. It brings up the worries of the day to come and really wakes us up. Even worse, if you're checking the time by pushing this button, not only do you see the time, if you're more popular than I am, you also see messages and emails and work stuff and all of that kind of thing. My biggest recommendation today, particularly in the times that we're living in at the moment, take your phones and just charge them on the other side of the room, just away from your bedside table. If this is charging right next to you while you sleep, you're going to stay connected to it whether the screen's off or not. Our brains start to develop a really good connection with these things. If you ever feel these vibrate and it scares the crap out of you, it could mean that we're a bit too involved in it. Your alarm will still wake you up. If someone calls you with an emergency in the middle of the night, it will still wake you up. But what it means is if you wake up in the middle of the night, you won't turn over, push those buttons and really, really start to affect your sleep, because it's, I'm going to stop evangelizing about mobile devices one day, but they are really, really dangerous. Yeah, and Rabbi says the radiation can also be damaging. Yeah. Someone says privately, I always check the time as I wear a smartwatch to track my sleep. Okay, have a look at the settings. Most of these mobile devices actually have the controls on them that we need. We're just not using them. So taking that time to use the controls and set something that suits us is also really useful. Someone says here, I suffer from tinnitus, so I use podcasts on my phone to help me sleep. Brilliant. If your phone is with you to help you sleep and it's not getting in the way, don't listen to this tip. Absolutely. But just if you're not using it for something constructive, or even if you are, maybe you can try Bluetooth speakers or Bluetooth headphones, something to give you a little bit of space and separation from your device. Um, just leaving them over the other side of the room, as I say, is a really, really good one. So the science behind this, they did a really big study about this, and it showed that on average, it will take you 50 minutes to fall asleep in the middle of the night if you check the time. I'm not talking about checking your phone, I'm talking about checking a dumb old clock like this. Even that will keep us up for nearly an hour. If you don't check the time, however, the study showed that people fell asleep in about 5 to 10 minutes. So if you can resist it, it's really tough, especially in the middle of the night. If you can resist it, it can be really, really beneficial. For those of you that are kept awake by noise, so sometimes we live in a busy household or busy block of flats like I do. I know some of my neighbors work nights, so I can hear them moving around at night time. Maybe if a car door slams on the street outside, it wakes you up. That's a good sign that you might be quite a light sleeper. Now, it's really natural, particularly when we're anxious, that our kind of audio center of our brain stays awake, checking for danger while we're asleep. It's just trying to keep us safe. But sensitive sleepers, you might find white noise stops you from waking at every little noise. And white noise can be leaving a fan on, but there's lots of really good apps, and I'll share a few of them afterwards that can create good sounds and things like that. Online stuff has got loads and loads of free resources for white noise and things like that. Lots of people throwing their tips in the chat, which is great. I wear earplugs, Karen says. Flandina says wax earplugs are more comfortable than foam ones. Kate says I have Bose earbuds, great. Gemma says I've got into the habit of using earplugs, which is an issue now as I hear everything when I don't wear them. Yeah, absolutely. Karen says Gemma, me too. Yeah. So making sure that you're doing something to block out that noise if you're a light sleeper is really useful. White noise machines. If you're someone that sleeps really well on a plane or on a train or in a car journey, that's a good sign that a white noise machine would be useful for you, because that kind of background noise that can make us feel really comforted while we're sleeping. Now I'm on to my favorite topic, stimulants. That doesn't just mean caffeine. Nicotine and alcohol are also stimulants. So is sugar. They play a real big part in creating a fatigue cycle and poor sleep. So even something like having dinner too close to bedtime, especially if that dinner has any sugar in it, is going to keep us awake. It's going to affect our sleep. Good thing to know about caffeine as well is that it has a half-life of 5 hours in the human body. So if I had a coffee now at 4:30, I would have half of that caffeine in my body at 9:30. That's not so bad. I'm not going to sleep till about 11 o'clock these days, so maybe I can deal with that, but it's still a bit too late. So try and think about having a curfew of when you're going to have your last bit of caffeine of the day. Really, really useful, because stimulants disrupt our body chemistry, and they disrupt that kind of equilibrium, the balance we need for a really good sleep. And Nina says here, also fruit and dark chocolate are stimulants, so best to avoid at night. Exactly. And it's annoying because what's the thing that I want after dinner? I want a piece of chocolate, something sweet usually, especially if I've had a hard day at work. I want to reward myself with something. So just trying to shift that dinner a little bit earlier in the day, give time for those stimulants to leave your body before you're trying to rest and sleep. This is particularly important for those of you who say you're going to bed, but you don't feel tired, or you're going to bed and you're finding it difficult to fall asleep, that kind of thing. Rabea said in the chat here, milk is a good one to relax. It has tryptophan in it, which helps to promote sleep. Fantastic. Karen says, think the guy smoking cannabis next door makes me sleep as it comes through the chimney. That's one way of getting free drugs. Yeah, brilliant. R. Alan Martin said, I have an app called Atmosphere that has a large range of sounds. Thank you. Share the link to us in the chat if you can. Nigel says, I have decaf after 6 p.m. Brilliant. Great thing to switch to. Yeah, Flandina said CBD, so cannabinoids, can be really useful for promoting relaxation, particularly for those of you that suffer with anxiety, and particularly around nighttime and sleep. It can be especially useful for those of you that have a lot of nightmares as well. It's been shown that they can really prevent those, especially those that come up from kind of past traumas. So yeah, that's kind of someone said that to me in a private message earlier, that it's their kind of childhood trauma that keeps them awake, so that might be useful. Karen said, I can ask the guy next door to try it. Yeah. So CBD and cannabis are slightly different. So CBD is one of the active ingredients in cannabis, along with THC, which is the one that has all those kind of psychoactive effects. But CBD has a lot more of the kind of relaxing and body effects as well. Susie says, what time should we have dinner if we sleep about 11 p.m.? So it's different from everyone, but I think leaving 5 hours is a really good time. So that means a 6 p.m. dinner, which might seem quite early to some of you. So, you know, try things out. Try doing it a little earlier than you usually do. That's what I do. Oh, thanks. R. Alan Martin's put that in the chat for us, that link. So yeah, I'm not always so keen on giving like exact times or exact number of hours, Susie. I see a thumbs up, thank you. Just try and pull things back a little bit closer in the direction that we know helps. So look, if you're someone that's drinking tea all the way up until bedtime, you're not going to suddenly quit drinking tea after 12 p.m. That's going to be a big step, but just pull it back a bit at a time, and you'll find a little bit of a time your sleep will improve. And then one of my favorite ones is exercise and movement, something that we've all been missing over the last couple of years. We've all moved less than we normally would. And that for some people, exercise is really easy, for some it's more difficult. But when I'm talking about exercise and movement, I am just talking about moving a bit more than you did yesterday. There's no body goals that we're going for here. There's no exercise classes of a certain length that you have to do. Just change what you're doing and go up a little bit from yesterday. Like I said, with the dinner, we're going to move it earlier a bit at a time. With exercise and movement, just a little bit more each day. Because when we achieve a good level of movement and exercise during the day, we sleep better. Because movement produces adenosine, which is useful for counteracting that adrenaline that keeps us awake. This is particularly useful for those of us with really stressful lives at the moment or dealing with a lot of anxiety. And exercise then also helps us lose excess weight, which improves our breathing. The better we breathe, the better we sleep. In fact, if we breathe better while we sleep, we also lose more weight and build more muscle from the exercise that we've done, because we're giving our body that oxygen it needs for that rest and repair. I cannot express how important this is, even just starting small and doing a little bit more than yesterday. It also produces lots of other hormones if we can exercise on a daily basis that can really help us. And again, just it puts us back in charge, feeling in control. It's dumb animal stuff, but if I have movement in my day, I'm sending a message to my brain that I'm physically capable of looking after myself and caring for myself. So I get less of an anxious response. I also brought together a few of these tips I found really useful. So I quite like to use a bedtime routine. I do not use it every single day, which seems strange as a routine. I use my bedtime routine when I know I'm going to have a stressful day the next day. If there's something I'm not looking forward to, something I'm anxious about, if there's something coming up that's really big on the next day, then I go to my bedtime routine, which includes shutting off screens for 2 hours before bed, doing some light stretching. I have a bath or a shower, whatever I can, whatever I've got time for. I put on a fresh set of sheets, fresh set of pajamas, and go to bed. It's a really small, simple routine, but the reason I only use it when I really need it is because then I'm sending a message to myself that I'm doing this on purpose because I'm worried about tomorrow, and it helps me process those thoughts and worries too. Sarah says, Get Fit with Rick on YouTube is great. Videos from 1,500 steps up to 10,000 steps. Helps me get my steps up when working from home. I will give that a try. I definitely need to get my steps up this week. Get Fit with Rick. Okay, that's going and getting pasted into my browser for later. Thank you very much. Rabea says, I found mind dumping helped a lot, and lots of lampshades in the house after a certain time. Beautiful. Yeah, bare bulbs again can bring that blue light into our life. So a clear bedtime routine. Look online, Google bedtime routines. Lots of different things there and lots of different suggestions. But on this slide, and you've already started doing it already, and I'm really, really appreciative of it. And thank you for everyone getting involved. I'd love to hear your sleep tips. What things do you do that you think really help you get a good night's sleep? Type them out in the chat. Share them with each other. Alison said here, I used to do a lot of low yoga meditation in the evening, helped me to wind down. Yeah, brilliant. That's it's like a little bit of intended time just for me to rest and relax. Debbie says bath before bedtime. I love it. I used to love that as a kid. Why do I stop doing it to myself as an adult? I get to choose when I have a bath these days. Brilliant. I'm in charge of that. Nigel, sitting quietly with my dogs. Brilliant. That connection with nature and other animals can really help relax our brain around bedtime as well. Toby says, if I wake up during the night thinking about what I need to do the next day, I'll write it down there and then. Seems to clear my mind and helps me get back to sleep. Yeah, that's my second bullet point there, Toby. So thanks for the useful segue. Yeah, clear your mind of difficult thoughts or decisions. Write them down, or as I did last night, I sent an email to myself. I found myself on my work emails checking things that I needed to do the next day. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do any of them now. So I just wrote myself an email with a few bullet points of things I needed to do today. In fact, I haven't yet checked that email, but I know I've done a vast majority of those bullet points. Hot shower before bed, Evelyn says. Yeah, I really like that. Bliss having a bath, says Karen. And it's time dedicated to ourselves. We're setting an intention that I'm caring for myself and winding down for bed. Gemma says a candle before bed or spray on my pillow. Yeah, I'm a big fan of pillow sprays with lavender in them. Really helps me. Again, I don't necessarily know that it's the lavender that helps me fall asleep, but it's the intention. I'm saying I'm doing something for myself. Rather than punishing myself for not sleeping, I'm doing positive things that are going to help me sleep. Hayley says mindfulness with the Headspace app is part of my nightly routine once I'm in bed. Helps me to process the day as well as makes me a bit sleepy. Brilliant. Rabia says getting a cat may help too. Yeah. Sarah says I use pillow mist and read for 10 minutes. Brilliant. Look at all of these. Charlie says I use a face cream which has ingredients such as frankincense, which helps open your airways, which makes you feel sleepy. I had no idea about that, Charlie. That is brilliant. I'm going to try that one. Jen says journaling. Asha says sleep meditation on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube's such a great free resource for things like meditations and mindfulness. Um, Mainly because there's a lot of options. I think with meditation and mindfulness, I have to like the person's voice or at least be able to put up with it. So if I've got lots of choices on something like YouTube, I can just try a few and see if there's one I get along with. Massage oils, Nigel says, that support relaxation into the soles of the feet. Write down what I'm grateful for. Beautiful. That sounds like a great routine. Annie says, trying to wake up the same day every day. Always a struggle when I want to lie in, but over time it does seem to help. Yeah, building that expectation in our body. Again, that really talks to that old animal brain that we have that likes to know what to expect, know what's coming next. Karen said, we could all write a sleep book together. We absolutely could. Ruth said, pen and pad by your bed. Write down your thoughts and then you can forget until morning. That is exactly what this red book is. You can see it is full of thoughts. I only started this in January, so it's a little bit full already, but lots to think about at the moment. Flandina says touch or cuddles with animals or people stimulates oxytocin. Really good point, Flandina. Yeah. So there's a really good medical reason why that touch is really important. It is one of our basic animal needs. Evelyn said it's like a bedtime story. Great. Rabia said, yes, I agree. Rabia said, marry a masseuse. That's a good idea. Although, is that a bit like marrying a therapist? Because I don't want to give therapy all the time. Does a masseuse want to give massages all the time? Maybe. Maybe you found one that does. Michael says, YouTube is TV though. Yeah, but if you put it on and just listen to the sounds, so a lot of sleep meditations, the video is just, I don't know, a video of a calm ocean or a gentle forest or something. So you don't need to look at the screen. Charlie says, I have my website, which is Temple Spa, if you fancy giving the face cream a try. Thank you very much. I will. I'm going to click on that link right now. It's so good that we're able to share all these things with each other. I really appreciate it. Jen says, Insight Timer is also a great free app with lots of different types of meditation. I'll give that a try. Oh, Evelyn has said, comfy bed socks. What a great idea. Again, treating myself to something that I know is about looking after myself. Beautiful. Well, look, my tips are going to pale in comparison now because there's some really good functional stuff there, everyone. So thank you so much. The other things that I have here on the screen, make it darker. So the less light, the more restful sleep. This is particularly important for those of you having to work across time zones, having to work nights and sleep during the day. Darkness is really important. It can be a tough conversation if you share your house with someone else about saying, look, I need to create a really dark room and I need that peace so that I can sleep during the day. And then again, moving more in the day, reducing cortisol, increasing serotonin, getting that balanced rest and sleep. It's really important that we remember it's a lot of the stuff that we do during the day that generates the good sleep. Bandina said here in the chat, blackout blinds, or if partner hates that, then eye mask. Yes, eye mask is good. Lucy said, any tips for snoring partner? Yeah, so I do think kind of sharing with them that it's causing you problem. Yeah, but Flandina says move them. I get moved quite a lot in the night. Michael helpfully says divorce. It might not be that serious yet, Michael. Vanina says, not out by prodding them. Yeah, yeah. If someone's snoring, it's their problem and it's creating a problem for you. I think we have to kind of make it a little bit more of their problem as well. Yeah. Chuck out the bed, said Ramaya. Yeah. Kate says at Charlie David Attenborough. Great. Look, there are lots of things that we can do around snoring, lots of products out there. Sometimes those breathing strips work, but each person's snoring is often for a different reason and there's different causes. I recommend just going and speaking to a GP and seeing what options they represent. You know, again, so often it's left to the person who suffers because of the snorer, not the snorer themselves. So yeah, Linda says pinch their nose. I don't know if that's one of the joke responsive or a serious one, but give it a try. Michael says, I have screenshot the prodding to show wifey. These are brutal, says Lucy. Yeah, I think some people here have lived with a snorer for a long time and that frustration is coming out in the comments, Lucy. Cool. The other thing I wanted to talk about is just generally about balance. With poor rest and low mood, it's so easy at the moment to look at what we can't do and haven't done. And I wrote this last summer. I was getting to the end of every working day and I was realizing that all I could focus on was what I hadn't done, what I hadn't managed to achieve, the things that I hadn't been capable of doing. And I was completely forgetting about a very productive working day where I'd sat right here and done a lot of stuff. I was just focusing on the negatives. So first of all, whether you're struggling with sleep or not, think of the incredible resilience you've shown just by getting this far. We've just been through a global health pandemic. We're still in it, actually. And the only thing that's asked of us in that is to stay alive. If you've also kept working or kept supporting others, kept looking after yourself through all of that, that resilience requires a lot of celebrating and a big reminder sometimes. Because if we get to the end of the day and all you can see is all that you haven't done or you haven't managed, we could be on that kind of negative side of the coin a bit too much. Surprise, surprise, coming from a therapist, but talking to others can really help us gain that perspective. This can be a really useful thing to do at the end of the working day, is find a trusted colleague and debrief. Have a 30-minute conversation, just check in with each other. And if you do find yourself withdrawing and finding yourself not wanting to be around others and feeling that negativity, that's okay. It's a natural response. But don't punish yourself for being lonely. Don't punish yourself for withdrawing. Treat yourself with kindness and treat it as an important sign. Something that your body is telling you something's up. Cool. Evelyn says, my cat snores sometimes. That sounds helpful. Abdul says, I can't sleep. This official issues can't let me to sleep. Don't know how to control this. So if you've got a lot of stuff on your mind, as it sounds like it is, I don't know what you mean by official issues, but yeah, probably serious issues or something like that, then finding someone to have this debriefing conversation with around bedtime can be really useful as well. Getting that all out of your head. Thank you, Rebecca. See you soon. I've put a few resources on the slides here. There's a good few apps. Sleepio is a digital cognitive behavioral therapy program for sleep for those of you really struggling. It's a bit confusing because you download the app and then it tells you to go to the website to create an account, but it forgets to tell you that all the time. So make sure you go to the website first. Headspace, a couple of people have mentioned it already today. Really good guided meditation sessions. Put it on your phone, leave it to one side. I Sleep Easy as well has some really good meditations. The books that I use for my research and my support around sleep are both there. Why We Sleep by Matt Walker. Really, really scientific, lots of studies. He's brought together all of the kind of major sleep studies and put their findings in one book there. But if you prefer something a bit more self-helpy and something a bit more accessible, Tired But Wired by Dr. Ramlakan is a great, great book. She writes beautifully about sleep from this perspective of people that live a really busy lifestyle. I think that's all of us these days. We've had a lot thrown at us over the last 2 or 3 years. I think we all deserve to be considered as kind of high-flying, busy executives because whatever job we're working, we're dealing with a lot of stress at the moment. So I find her book to be really useful. And Ariana Huffington, actually, one of the founders of the Huffington Post, suffered burnout and a lack of sleep over a long period of time and has started writing lots of really good stuff. Charlie says, will we have a copy of these slides afterwards? Yeah, anyone who registered with their email address will send a link to the recording and a copy of the slides afterwards. I've also, for those slides, I've also taken some of the tips that we spoke about today and just put them all on one sheet. If you wanted to take a photo of your screen or a screen grab, I wanted to give you an opportunity of a good slide to look at for that. So whack out your phones, photo this. These are all from that book, Tired but Wired by Dr. Ramakant. We spoke about most of them today. Number 7, we didn't touch on in much detail, but breathing exercises in the day. Train yourself to sleep better. Try yoga, meditation, mindfulness. All of those will have some sort of breathing basis to them that will help us learn to breathe more naturally. Karen says, I like the last one. Yeah, me too. Trying to find that optimism. That's often what I'm writing down in that red book, actually, is the problems and then trying to find something grateful as well. Cool. And number 9 is a really good one for those of you that are living really busy lives across time zones, family in one place, friends in another, job in another place. Sometimes sleep just won't come. Don't force yourself. Don't hurt yourself over 1 or 2 hours of bad sleep, fighting and fighting for it. Get up, go and do something else. I put a load of washing on. I sit on the sofa and read a book. Often I fall asleep and then the washing machine beeps and it wakes me up and it reminds me to hang it up and things like that. But just giving yourself that. H. McFarlane says, how does 200 milligrams translate to number of cups of tea? Tea is really difficult because it's really it depends on how long you leave the bag in there for it to brew and things like that. I do know that an average cup of coffee is around 75 to 125. Now, some teas are much better for you than others as well. If you can switch to green tea, it gives you some of the other kind of antioxidants along with the kind of energy building stuff. So it actually counteracts that jitteriness and nervousness you might get from coffee. Evelyn says the machine washing is nice. It is, and it works really well. So just as a reminder, go and have a look at wellonline.co.uk. We've got lots of great resources out there for you all. If you need to find your login for that, speak to your HR department or just give us a call at CiC. You can get in touch with us 24 hours a day. I've only put our email address on here because lots of you are from different customers and you have different telephone numbers. But if you want to speak to us on the phone, just drop us an email first and find out what the number is. Or as I say, speak to your HR department. You can sign up for our newsletter at cicwellbeing.com. Every single one of these webinars, including this one, goes on YouTube. Hello to everyone watching on YouTube. They get uploaded a day or so afterwards. If you go and subscribe to the channel, even if you missed the live webinar, you'll get a reminder of when this comes on the video on YouTube. If you are a CiC customer already, if you want to get some kind of training group discussions going around these topics, get in touch. If you're new to CiC, just go and have a look at our corporate website. We'll take you all that stuff. And said the neighbors might have something to say about 3 a.m. laundry. Yes, I haven't asked them yet. But I find getting up and walking around and trying again definitely helps rather than laying there fuming. Yeah. Justin says, Red Bush, great strong tea, no caffeine. Brilliant. Asha, beware of disturbing neighbors if putting on the washing machine at night. I will. Thank you. Karen says, what does CiC stand for? It stands for counseling in companies, though we don't really use that anymore. We just use CiC. Sandy says, and many sleep hygiene people say better to leave the bedroom for a while than in bed tossing and turning. Yeah. If ever says TikTok Rubius tea, great. So the last thing for me to do is to say thank you so much. Gosh, there's still nearly 100 of us here listening to me talk about sleep and all of your tips in the chat. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you very much for being here as well. I'm about to end the recording, so goodbye to you all. See you next time.